Hello, welcome back to Brenda Sushi Learning. In this episode, I want to share a bit of some kind of idea concepts, kind of like a new way of modeling. That's kind of still work in progress, slightly weird, but this is actually one of an example of a finished product. So you can see something that looks like a weird looking chair. Not sure if it's actually working or functional, but it's actually quite interesting, right? So I can still make changes to some of the things. Yeah, some of them, of course, cannot work too much. So there's like some kind of limit, so they don't do like overlapping things like that. But you can sort of see where this one is going. So this kind of chair or maybe like a bench, if I extrude this, oops, there you go. It can be for more people, and if that's that long, then I might need to increase this depth. The chair is still looking kind of weird, but I think it's workable for something. um, this one was actually, if you look at this, there's this purple and red, so these nodes are looking really strange and weird, but they are actually kind of like mask. And the mask was actually originally created using the selection node, selection grabber. So there are how many deep? Okay, so one, two, three, four deep of extrusion, or actually in this case just inset faces. I didn't use other node like extrude. What I found is that with this kind of method, inset faces is probably one of the most stable. What's stable is that means for every process it doesn't change the index too much. Okay, so that's one thing. But you can see, even with just this setup, you can have a multiple result. So you can have this bench that's kind of breathing. Well, that's actually just only one example, but still it's kind of really interesting because, yeah, because why not? So of course here I use a lot of trickery, things like mirror modifiers, things like that, because originally without the mirror it's only gonna look like this, kind of like an airplane or something. But I found like even with this kind of setup, you can end up with maybe hundreds or maybe unlimited number of base, a really good base for everything, for any objects that you can find every day. Maybe like chair, table, airplane, maybe simple creature like human. If you do it half side and then you kind of do it simple extrusion, I don't know if this theory is correct or not. Um, I will try to prove it with something even more abstract, which is like I mean, not this kind of stick figure, but it's more like something like this, kind of like a character or like a writing in certain language. But this is can be like skin modifier, just point and edges. Here I'm using extrusion. It works on a mesh. This one stick figure, it works for anything. So if you are asked to make a chair, very likely you're gonna draw this. If you make a table, very likely you're gonna draw a table, or something that really simple. Spoon, for example, you just draw it like that, and fork. Human actually very interesting because uh, our brain, maybe the way our brain think, we can think in terms of stick figure, bottle, glass. So with just these objects, if you put it together, you get some kind of scene. So two chair, one table, and all whatever on top of it, and then you put it inside a box or frame it inside a room. you get a scene, and all of those can be created procedurally. We know that. Okay, so let's do something that's simple, abstract, and I don't know what it is yet, but let's try this method. Save as, so file, save as. This is SV. I call it weird modeling. This is totally new. It's not like Maya, not like Houdini. A little bit similar maybe, but it's something else. Okay, plane. Start with a plane. We want to do inset. Inset. Just inset faces. Don't choose inset spatial. Just something basic. Output's gonna be B mesh. And just make it 6 by 6. Center it. Extrude. Okay, the thing with inset is just it's only go in, unlike extrude where you can go out more. This one can do only inset, but the nice thing is that you can turn on region. So it's actually, yeah, it does work on every face like that. So that's my first level of extrusion. I don't have any mask. It will just do it on every face, but that's okay. We're gonna continue. I don't actually need this guy for now. Maybe should I? Okay, don't worry about that. Yeah, maybe actually I use this. I'm gonna turn this off, and I'll make selection. So this is the thing that's slightly strange. Make selection. The way Spreadshock works with selection now, it's not like Sorcar, but it can be interesting still. If you look at it from using stethoscope, you can see there's false, 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 and true, false. So because we select some, we have selected some components, right? Edit mode, still there. Cool. The point is, they are all still there. And we have this B, BMS alpha, etc. I made something called exact parsable. Actually, this is just some kind of convention that I made. It's simply something to store this value very, very, very quickly. I store it here. This value is stored. Now I can delete all of this. I can even delete this guy. I don't need this anymore. I can hide the history. So I have selections of, I know what this guy will do. Insert faces, I know those areas that's been inserted. So I will insert further. I make another B mesh. So with this one, okay, so it's looking like a plate. You might wonder why, because I wonder why as well, because I don't put any selection yet. Okay, so it's doing it on the whole thing. Although if you ever use masking in Spreadshock, in this case, it will actually mask that area, the middle area. So that's actually by default, and you get something. This is already an object. The bottom is, oh yeah, with inset faces, the bottom is actually hollow. The one you left before is hollow. So don't worry about that. I guess for now we actually just want to use this. I actually quite like this. Hide it. Yeah, I'll just arrange it a little bit. I keep the masking there, but the output is what we want. Just plug it into the face mask. You see what happened? It remembers and respect our mask. And this is actually something that's previously, if you ever want to do this, it's actually really pretty difficult. You actually, with Sphere Talk, you can actually have selection. You have this really robust select mesh elements. This is actually quite powerful. I tried this before. You can select by side, normal direction, center, radius, plane. This is really powerful. It's slightly complicated, but if you work with plane, cylinder, the edge, etc., this is really powerful. It will do the vertices, mask, etc. Edges, face, complicated, but it can work as well. But in this case, we don't worry about. I found that this is much easier for a lot of cases. For simple design. Okay, so yeah, enough talking. I'm gonna turn this off. So we have another history being created. This will never update. I make another selection. You might notice the selection is all quite manual. Yeah, I think that's okay. In fact, we can actually make two options. So selection grabber. So we have this selection. I'm just gonna grab this. Oops. Select this guy. Save it. Save this one there. And then disconnect it. This one is cache. I'm gonna go back. Get rid of selections and try a different selection. And then put this there. And then disconnect. So we don't need this anymore. Get rid of it. But we still have our selections. Strange enough in Blender, selection is actually safe. Not many people know this. The last selection is safe. It's actually quite cool. So it's almost like this guy. This is like storing it. Kind of want to collapse this into a group or something. But let's continue with our story of extrusion, or inset rather. Pass the last objects there, and we have our selection mask thing going on here. The first one, first face mask, do another B mesh. This is a second layer. So this is one result, as you already expected, because based on the selection mask, this is what it looks like. Right, with inset and something that's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, you will definitely get something that's looking abstract. But you actually have another options. This guy. So you end up with this kind of sculpture, right? Which is, I think, quite interesting. Save this. Zero it out. And save as a different name. So we continue. Let's talk and make selection more. You still need selection grabber. It's gonna get it from this object. This object's already, it's not disappeared. It's this one over here. Okay, new selection. This time I want to perhaps extend this area. I want to extrude it not as separate. Let's do it as I mean not individual. Okay, region. We have out and in. I haven't tried it. Let's try this. So we have our selection. Cool. Okay, save our mask. Save, delete. This guy can disappear. Let's do our inset magic. Duplicate this guy. Vertices and faces. This one goes into the face mask. So these hopefully maybe can be all more automatic in the future, but okay, it's doing that. So I can push in actually, that's cool. Not too much, it's starting to overlap, that's inset thing. So individual, region, in or out. So that's what in actually does. So in and out. So this is more like, actually it doesn't give too much option. Yeah, let's just do it like this for now. Inset itself have its own thing, of course, like I already told you, you can use this mask. So face mask, very powerful. Okay, in and out. It's not okay, it's not very useful in this case. I guess that's all right. We can actually continue, but I think this is a good enough example. So let's hide this. So if we go back and make changes, things will update. You can see very quickly, of course, some things will change. This guy was symmetrical. Now it's not, some overlapping. But however, we know that each one of the step is procedural. We can't go too far, but still we can make changes. It's looking a little bit like some kind of coffin, which is pretty weird. So inset is actually very interesting on that example. Okay, now in and out actually matters in this case. Pretty strange result. You might wonder that, can we make changes to the masking? Well, maybe you can, but not something that's too crazy, because the index will change and we're gonna lose everything. The only way I could think of that is that if we mask, if every step is becoming separate from the previous and become a new objects, maybe you can do like a kind of depth modeling more um, more in depth, like new face data. I think with extrusion, this is slightly complicated, but with this guy, we actually have extruded poly and other poly. This will change the index in a weird way, but at least it's separating it from object A. In a way, there's another add-on called Sorcar, and extrusion is becoming slightly, it can be a little bit more dynamics. I mean, with Sverchok, it's different, it's not stable. So this is the first extrusion, right? This is the second, this is the third. If you want to go back and you want to actually extrude this area, you expect it to actually have the same extrusion. But maybe you don't. This kind of thing is becoming like a, if you want to automate it, the whole process, you have to think of the algorithm becoming complex. But with this, with the our method is actually less crazy. So I mirror it. It becomes something else. You can always bevel it, but this is how I created that chair you saw earlier. So it can become a coffin or become some kind of sculpt. And I definitely cannot change this number, but try anyway. You see what happened there? It screw up everything. But if you keep it like before, like the original, it's okay. At least we can still change the X and Y. So thickness, you can't go too far because this is an inset. But I quite like this actually. This kind of effect. That's actually because of the inset. So my conclusion with this method is that it's a little bit strange, a little bit crazy, but however, it's quite powerful as well. It gives you a lot of things that you didn't see before, a lot of possibilities. So look at this region and depth thing, change everything. Completely change everything, even though this is still the same setup. So yeah, it's a little bit strange. You might end up with strange looking design, if you want to call it design. I don't know what it is, but I think the secret with this method is that if you design half, maybe this can be something else. So like human, just design half and then mirror it. Or maybe like a bug, I don't know, things that have 4 legs, possible. Also like animal with a head. If you design half, you just mirror it. Even things like a chair, I prove that chair, table will work. Cup, any objects that's human made, that's actually the most basic, can be recreated using this method. Of course, if you're not careful, it will explode, and it lost its form. But if you're pretty careful, you're gonna create something new. Okay, I like that. Okay, there you go. That's my speech and presentation on this really weird method of 3D modeling. It's not new, it's just like because now we can store these manual selections. This become like a semi-procedural. even though it's really basic and it has its limitation, I know. But even like creatures, creatures that's more advanced, like human, animals, mammals, fish, all the 5 type of creatures, insects, they all still limited compared to smaller things. Humans actually rather simple. It's a bipedal compared to animals with 4 legs. Well, you might have tail in some creatures like monkey, but it's still, I think, if you divide a creature and then you study it, simplify it, you can end up with something like this, I'm pretty sure. All right, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.